Let's talk some college football. John Reed and Jesse Simonton. No big firings this weekend, Jesse, but we have been waiting for this moment. This has been the thing I found most interesting throughout the entire season, is when all of these coaching openings are going to come to a head. And it does seem like we have our answer. It didn't happen early, but we are here, on the doorstep of rivalry weekend. The playoff rankings are coming out. People are jostling for position. And now we are officially on, red alert in the Lane Kiffin coaching cycle hire process. What's the latest? What are your thoughts? What are you most intrigued by?
Well, no, I mean, there's a ton of Palace intrigue in that, because doesn't it seem like it's like every day it's like more black smoke is coming out. We haven't chosen. Lane hasn't chosen a new pope, aka hasn't chosen a landing spot yet. But I mean, it really is kind of what will Lane do, because I can't recall, as someone who has covered these coaching searches as a beat writer, and then is now, doing it from kind of a more national perspective, not being in the granular of trying to break the news or anything, but just kind of, covering where they go and what happens and kind of that aspect of it. I can't remember, maybe you can. I can't remember a search this public where, yeah, it happens where the wives and the girlfriends or whatever maybe go clandestine visit. But the fact that it came out and was so publicly leaked, clearly, I think, from Lane's camp, that the white ex-wife was in Gainesville, touring Buchholz. That was where I went to high school. Then went to LSU and was touring the Catholic schools in Baton Rouge. I just don't remember that being that public. And Lane so sticking it to, in the eye of Ole Miss has actually made me come full circle, John. I'm back. Last week I said I thought he was, and I honestly, I think the intel was there that he was maybe leaning towards Florida. I almost think this is a wrestling bit now. I'm not into wrestling. I don't know what the nomenclature is called. Maybe you can actually give me the correct term. But I do think we maybe have hit like a 3-dimensional chess where Lane is like going to beat his chest. And basically this is like the king comes home and he's going to be, it almost seems like he's rubbing it in Ole Miss's nose so publicly that he's setting himself up for the Leo Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not effing leaving.
Yeah, there's a couple of wrestling things you could go with. The concept is Ole Miss kicking out at 2. You maybe have heard of that. Like, you kick out at 2. Like, it looks like they're pinned, looks like they're in the middle of the ring. The babyface, boom, gets their shoulder up, rallies, and wins. But there's also another one that Hulk Hogan made famous. I don't know if he was drinking or just going through some things, but some late-night tweeting he did maybe 10, 15 years ago, where he called somebody a jabroni mark on Twitter and said they worked themselves into a shoot. And I'm a little bit worried about Lane Kiffin working himself into a shoot, which is, a work in wrestling, Jesse, means it's a part of the show. A work means it's fake. A shoot means it's real. So if you ever hear somebody is shooting on the other person, that means they are saying real-life drama that happens behind the scenes. I think Lane Kiffin is at the risk, in danger of doing what you said, which is doing a bit, but he is working himself into a shoot because he is very close to making this Ole Miss fan base actually hate him. Like, he is very close to making a lot of people in college football turn against Lane. I feel like with the way he is kind of going out here and flirting and being open and tweeting out, motivational quotes and whatever. I don't think it'll get to the point where Ole Miss is telling him to leave, but you did have the ultimatum report come out of there saying, hey, either leave or come back. Pick one, brother. We're not going to beg you, even though I do think we all know behind the scenes they are begging him to stay.
Well, on that point, I mean, that's kind of why I've come full circle on this, because it has been so brazen. I mean, I don't think there's anything coming back from leaving a team that's 11-1 potentially, and leaving for quote unquote greener pastures at Florida or LSU, and then not getting to even coach in the playoffs. I do think that's on the table. I do believe that is on the table. And part of the reason I believe that, John, is that behind the scenes, if you've heard some of the stuff, some of the rumblings, I think Lane, if he leaves, is going to take several guys from that staff. Charlie Weiss, I think there's the Joyner coach, his brother, Chris Kiffin, I think would come with him. But the one guy who I think is absolutely not going to leave is Pete Golding. And so I think Ole Miss feels like they have somebody that they believe in, even though I don't think their defense is all that good. I think that's more of a talent deal than maybe, the coaching, because Pete coached a hell of a defense a year ago and they had a lot better players. That's another reason why I don't think Ole Miss is bluffing. So we're going to see what Lane does. I mean, it is fascinating that he has a guy who is so, quote unquote, grown as a man and grown as a character and developed as a coach, I guess, but he could throw that all away. If he doesn't keep, pissing on him, so to speak, as he has in the next week.
Well, there's a couple things. Like, if he leaves Ole Miss, I do think there is a high likelihood that Ole Miss fans are going to hate him more than Tennessee fans hated him when he left, with the way this is drug out and the way he is leaving after being there for so long and having it built up. On the other hand, I get it from Ole Miss's perspective, because if he leaves, at least the way it seems, I know the Titans were kind of mentioned last week by Bruce Feldman as having his attention or whatever, but let's just assume that he leaves for a college job. It would be to either an annual rival in LSU or a team like Florida that you wouldn't want to give Lane the platform to A, keep recruiting your players, but B, have a showcase, be put on a pedestal. Like, he would be the main story in any playoff game, not Ole Miss. So you would just be doing him a favor at that point. I've said all year, though, Jesse, that was part of the reason I just couldn't buy Lane leaving. Like, I've always said I thought he was staying, because I just don't know how you leave a team that has a chance to win a championship. Like, Lane, I think at this point you could say Lane's best chance to win a championship, right? Like, no other team he's had has been a national championship contender, or at least qualified for the playoffs and been in that, that 5 or 6 or 10 team, whatever you want to call it, tier that can actually win, or at least win a couple games in the playoffs. I just can't see him walking out and quitting on the team at that point. That seems crazy to me.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think there's any coming back from that.
No.
In terms of reputational rehab that he's had, and I think some of that has been largely overblown. Lane's still Lane. I mean, his trollish nature is fun, but it certainly, I don't think, speaks to some added grown maturity. But it's
no
fun.
more so than just no more so than just a normal, hey, I used to be 28 and kind of a jerk, and now I'm a 45-year-old dad, so I got a little bit more perspective. That's just natural.
Right. Now, I will say this. It was funny. I was talking about this just the other day. It is kind of crazy, and it speaks to this coaching carousel in 2025 and the lack of pizzazz in terms of candidates. And you and I have already spoken about that a little bit. But 4 years ago, when the Florida and LSU jobs were open the last time, Lane Kiffin couldn't get a sniff for either of those jobs. I mean, wasn't even on. Now, some Florida fans sort of wanted him. The administration had zero interest in Lane Kiffin at Florida. The administration at LSU had zero interest. And I know he has won a bunch of games between now and, then. But I'm not sure he's remarkably a different coach. But he is, suddenly, because of the lack of other, adequate candidates, he is now the belle of the ball and is controlling this whole thing, because obviously James Franklin goes to Va Tech. The first domino of that's going to make this thing cascade is whatever Lane does, because then that's, Eli Drinkwitz is out here, taking 4,000 words to say something that could have been a 9-word statement about, his potential. Everyone knows it's an open secret that, he's probably likely to leave Missouri. Brent Key has kind of, stuck his foot in his mouth a little bit too. But none of those people are obviously going to leave until Lane makes a decision. And another thing, just to harp on from Ole Miss's perspective, I think the reason why they, if the reporting is correct, issued that ultimatum even though I think Lane does have a good relationship with Keith Carter, their AD, they want to get their ducks in a row for their next head coach, i.e., they want to be front in line for John Sumrall. You know, he was the former defensive coordinator there. They don't want to lose out to Auburn on that front. And so you got to get your ducks in a row if Lane really is going to keep, you know, waffling and wavering. When he did this in 2022, remember, they lost the Egg Bowl after he did that long flirtation with Auburn and then signed the contract. I think 2 days, you know, it was like the day Thanksgiving or something like that before the Egg Bowl. Then they went out there and completely laid an egg. I think that's another aspect in all this as well.
I saw a Ole Miss, you know, beat reporter on their message boards talking about how bad practice was like yesterday and like how weird it is in the facility right now.
Didn't Lacey tweet something?
I don't know. I didn't see that. I just saw a message board post get shared.
Okay.
But, you know, I don't buy into the ultimatum in the sense of like, hey, I think if they got to Sunday and Lane Kiffin's like, guys, I need a couple more days to think about it, I don't think they're being like, nope, too late, you're fired. But I do think like if he's like, hey, I'm leaving, then they're like, okay, you're out. Like you're not coaching the ball game. Like you're you know being escorted out. Go have fun, do whatever. You don't get to say goodbye to nobody. Get your stuff and go. It's funny you say that about Lane not being a different coach because like I don't know if he is or not, but like obviously his standing is just so much better. You know, his national perception and the way people think of him is just, you know, obviously so much better. There's more proof of concept of him actually being a successful SEC coach. But whenever you were saying that, I couldn't help but think of like Stephen A. Smith because I think they're kind of similar in that regard. Of like Stephen A. Smith, hot shot, busted on the scene, Allen Iverson, early 2000s. Then all of a sudden, boom, left for dead, fired, kind of wandering through the media world. And then, of course, when he came back to ESPN, immediately became like a huge, huge megastar. And like now, Stephen A. Smith's everywhere, and you can't tell him anything, and the ego just out of control. Lane kind of that same bill as far that same mold as far as I'm concerned with, you know, young hotshot at USC, of course, USC, head coach, Raiders, Vols, all that. And then, you know, of course, humbled and left for dead. Now back to being the face of the 2025 college football season. So, of course, he's going to do this and draw it out and enjoy being
and he was always going to make it
attention.
About Lane. I mean, it was always going to be the Lane Kiffin show. And that's why who knows how this is, you know, what will Lane do? Who knows how this is ultimately going to play out in terms of what that decision is. It seems like some folks in LSU seem to think that smoke is real. The Florida fans, I said this a week ago, they're going to be crestfallen, you know, and there's some Lincoln Riley, you know, alleged smoke behind that. That's their, you know, contingency plan. Good luck with that. You know, that coming.
That might be another playoff team. That might be another playoff coach if they're able to win at Oregon this weekend.
Well, that that would be quite funny if that's how it played out, considering the comments that Kirby made after beating Texas about, you know, we like to hit people. It's not just, you know, checks. We pay them, but we also pay them to come, you know, hit people. That ain't exactly what Lincoln Riley's doing. So that would be an interesting, you know, aspect from that rivalry.
Another wrestling term is, you know, putting yourself over, putting people over. That's if you lose or you make somebody look good, if you're doing a back and forth in the promo battle and you're reacting to them, it's called putting them over. And, you know, the one person that's going to be put over here at the end is Lane Kiffin. Like, and whatever school he decides, like, ultimately is going to be the big winner here, right? Like, if he stays at Ole Miss, he gets to beat his chest, like you say, and say that, like, hey, I was recruited by these other schools that you might think are better. I decided to stay at Mississippi because what we can do here is special. We got everything we need here. Blah, blah, blah. # come to the SIP. Or he could say, like, hey, I'm going to LSU because we can win a national championship here. You've seen all these coaches do it. Or he can go to Florida and restore the tradition, whatever. He is going to put that school and himself over wherever he goes. But like you said, Florida's going to be crestfallen. LSU will be embarrassed. Ole Miss will be crestfallen. Like, whatever two teams lose this battle are going to feel like real losers. They are going to feel really bad and, like, really question where they are, because imagine telling LSU they couldn't go out and get a coach they wanted. from Ole Miss or to beat this version of Florida. Now I know LSU's got all the stuff going on that makes them, not as appealing. I get that, but like, imagine telling Florida 5 or 6 years ago they couldn't go out and get Lane Kiffin when he was at Florida Atlantic. Like they couldn't go out and big boy Ole Miss. Like it's such an interesting love triangle to me.
Well, here's the other reason why I think, most of what Lane said on McAfee yesterday was a complete nothing burger. McAfee really didn't ask him any real questions except for the ultimatum thing. But Lane made this comment that went on the rounds that he talked about the text chain that he's on with Kirby and Sark and these ex-Saban guys. And he talked about one loss. You might be out of the top 10, 2 losses, you're out of the top 25, 3 losses, they want you fired. And he was alluding to Brian Kelly. That may be true at LSU in Florida. That may be true. What that's not true is at Ole Miss, where they lost 3 games a year ago with the greatest roster they ever had, and Lane was never in trouble. They doubled down and gave him more NIL money this past year. And if he actually, the irony of him potentially squandering a chance where, like you said, we both agree, he has a chance to win a national championship. They were going to host a first-round playoff game that they will be favored in, and then you will potentially in the semifinals. They will build Lane Kiffin a damn statue in Oxford if he even gets them to the national championship game, much less win it. So it is just kind of funny that he's obviously weighing all these options, and yet the ceiling and safest one is the one that he's already at.
It's interesting, but like I kind of view that differently now. Like I feel like this last month has used up not his goodwill with Ole Miss, but it's used up the oh golly shucks, we're so happy to have you here. Like I do think if this comes out and he stays at Ole Miss and the money's going to be astronomical and he'll be a top 3, top 4 paid head coach, whatever. I do think this charades and dragging them through the mud, you'll have the big boost of happiness if he stays. But I do think you're past the point of like, oh, we're just happy to be in the conversation. I do think Ole Miss would then start kind of demanding him actually be worth the headache. And like, hey, you do have to come here and produce at a big level year in, year out. And in a year, if they do go 9-3 or 8-4, would feel like a pretty big failure. I do think he has brought those expectations on with, to himself now.
Yeah. I mean, especially if they're going to end up having a match, what allegedly Florida and LSU,
right? If he's in the 14 or 15, if he's in the $14 or $15 million range, it's no longer golly gee, we're just so happy that you like us. Like it's like, no, we're paying you to win us a championship, and why are we going 9-3? Like we could pay somebody else $15 million to come here and do that. So I do think the pressure will be ramped up at Ole Miss too. So like I do think he has, worked himself into a little bit of a shoot there. He's worked himself into a little bit of a problem. A little bit of a pickle when it comes to just being the good vibes guy at Ole Miss.
It's what will Lane do? What will Lane do? My final prediction is that he stays.
If he doesn't stay, he is burning it down, and I just don't know if he is ready to completely burn it down again. But like you said, I know Florida. A lot of people at Florida feel good. I saw some of the same things you're talking about. I talked to a guy, that claims he's in the know. I don't know if he's in the know or not, but he was like telling me all of his LSU friends and high dollar friends are all thinking they got him in the bag too. And of course, I think Ole Miss.
There's all those rumors. There's all those rumors about him, already building the staff with LSU, with keeping Frank Wilson and getting Ed O back, and
the thing is, he could be telling the truth. Like he could be telling Florida that he's in. He could be telling LSU he's in. He could be thinking that, like going on these visits and talking to them and kind of giving the idea that he is going to do it. I've maintained I think he stays. I just don't see him walking off on a playoff team like that. I don't know how you could bounce back from that perception-wise, like you said. I don't know how you would ever trust him to not just look out for Lane Kiffin. First and foremost.
Here's the thing. I think we're going to see a coach leave a playoff team at some point. It's likely going to be a coach at a G5 program where, let's hypothetically, say, Chesney at James Madison.
Sure.
And he wants to go ahead. Now he's again, he's not going to get a job that's this good. But say Penn State actually wanted him versus him likely to end up at UCLA. I think there's plenty of avenues where he does go ahead and leave a G5 playoff team for a job like Penn State, because you got to get the ducks in a row for signing day and the transfer portal and all that. I just, for a position like Lane, where especially like that game, that playoff game, John, I think you and I have been, spoiled, each of us, for our, fan bases. Obviously Tennessee's been, but you've seen some great times. You've had, the Titans made it to the Super Bowl. That would be the biggest game, I think, in Mississippi football history, if they just hosting that playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, going on the road and playing in it. Yeah, I mean, like
going on the road and playing it for sure. But just the I'm not sure there's ever been a bigger sporting event in Mississippi. I don't know all my Mississippi history, but the fact that they got no professional teams, and there's probably been some big egg bowls, but hosting a college football playoff game would be way, 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 way up there. And it's just, you're dancing with the devil if you're burning that down.
Anytime my boy Steve McNair played at Alcorn State was pretty big too. Yeah, he had some big ones back down there. But yeah, I mean, it could be a huge celebration where they're making a playoff, hosting a game, and Lane Kiffin is saying he is staying, or it could be pretty bittersweet as you're hosting it with no coach and half your coaching staff, and the players are all kind of looking around like, what the hell's going on? That's what has made it so interesting to me all year, and it is now showtime. It is now all coming to a head. So you predict he stays. I think if I had to pick one of the three, I say he stays as well, although I don't have much confidence in it.
Yeah, neither do I. I don't. I just, again, the thumbing being this this transparent is just, it makes me wonder if this is all 3D chess and setting it up for the king comes home.
It is the best way to write a storyline. It's the best way to get Ole Miss, the notoriety, the attention, and make them look better than they actually are as a program. Or it looks like they beat LSU
because then he controlled the hell out of LSU and Florida.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's an easy recruiting pitch. You tell everybody, like if you're recruiting a guy that Ole Miss or LSU wants, you can be like, hey, I talked to them too, and man, I gotta tell you, we have everything here. Trust me, I was on the inside there. I looked at the finances. I did this and this and this, and Ole Miss is in a better spot than LSU and Florida. The future's brighter here. Come to the SIP.
Come to the SIP.
Kind of brilliant if it works out that way. Do we know? So you said you think that Ole Miss would look at Sumrall. You said LSU, or is it Florida that would have Lincoln Riley as a backup plan? Which one was that?
That's Florida, allegedly.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Do we know what LSU's backup plan would be?
I have not heard many other names associated with that search. I think Eli has been on the short list for both of those teams, Florida and LSU. I don't know how serious those conversations have been. I think he would be a pretty odd fit in Baton Rouge, but
I hadn't even considered that. If LSU hires Drinkwitz, like that feels like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. He's got to be the second biggest name out there, I think, right now. Who would you have? We like to do tiers. I think he's a tier below Lane, but who is?
It's a fair question. Like I just don't like Drinkwitz, and I just don't like his vibe, and it just doesn't feel like LSU. Now, like Brian
what about
Kelly.
Clark Lee?
Clark Lee doesn't feel like LSU either, but like at least he's less goofy. But like I think the problem with LSU or Florida, and this is what happened at Tennessee a couple times, is if you don't get Lane, no one else is going to feel very good. No one else is going to scratch that itch for you.
Well, I will say there's actually one name, but again, this is where you and I have talked about this, alluded to this before too. These bet online sites that put out these odds, the accuracy of those things historically has not been particularly high. But the leading clubhouse leader right now for LSU is Kenny Dillingham, and people putting the 2 and 2 together that Dillingham and Levitt are going to be some package deal, going to the Bayou Bengals. if that happens, you're talking about it's not quite a Tommy Tuberville take me out in a pine box, but it's pretty damn close with Kenny Dillingham going emphatically on the record that I ain't ever leaving my alma mater to then, leave for LSU. So we'll see if that, because that would be an interesting hire, I think, for LSU, because Dillingham is young, he's hungry, he's shown he knows how to use the portal. He certainly doesn't have the coaching resume in terms of an Eli, but I think he has a higher upside. But I just don't believe that he's actually going to leave Arizona State.
I mean, he's done more than Eli has in terms of actually like checking off a box of like making the playoff. You know what I mean? Like I know
he
hasn't
done it. At a much easier place, but
sure. But I know he hasn't with Eli. I know it's a tough place, but the schedule he's had the last 2 years, they should have been better than they were. But we look at Dillingham. He's also going to be kind of the face of, or his school's going to kind of be the face of the transfer portal as well, because his quarterback is pretty much openly saying like, "Hey, come get me. I'm the the highest bidder. Throw some money at me. Hey, Miami,
exactly. You want to give Miami, Texas Tech, or LSU? Who's gonna pay me the most?"
Hell, maybe Texas, but yeah, I mean anybody. Like you never know like where the quarterback carousel is going to end up. So I could see him being a little frustrated with that. Maybe LSU brings him in and brings this quarterback in. Who knows? Or however it shakes out. But it is kind of overshadowing the playoff conversation as far as I'm concerned. Maybe that's because Tennessee is eliminated. But did you have any thoughts on the way the committee shook out last night?
Well, I said this a week ago when we talked about the week 2 rankings. It's a TV show. It's a TV show until the final one. So they're going to kind of make it up as they go, seemingly. But I thought last night was the greatest example of these guys. There's word salads, and then there's whatever ABC sweet greens that Hunter Yurachek was chewing on. Because I'm not sure I've ever seen a guy, committee chair talk in circles. Now look, this is a grade A example of why there should not be sitting ADs on this committee, because this guy's going through an active coaching search right now. He is the interim committee chair because the former committee chair, the Baylor AD, had to step down because he's embroiled in multiple controversies at Baylor, something with, allegedly, we don't have to get into it, something with inappropriate behavior. Then there was already the sideline incident with Michael Trigg. So he's dealing with multiple controversies. So Yurachek comes in. He's fresh off of firing Sam Pittman and looking for a new head coach. And he's out here saying the most ridiculous stuff about Alabama, not being able to run the ball and not winning by, margin against some of these teams. And then in the same breath, not realizing somehow that Notre Dame and Miami have played. I mean, it was just kind of bizarre. Like his comments made no sense. And so then the rankings completely, backed up his comments making no sense. Alabama being behind Notre Dame seems silly. Miami and Notre Dame's ranking vis-a-vis each other still seems silly. The fact that Oregon is somehow getting credit for beating a Penn State team then that sucks now, but other teams aren't getting. They kind of
sucked then too. Like, just to be fair, that Penn State team wasn't even good then.
For sure. They at least had a big crooked number next to their name. A nice 2 ranking next to their name. All of his commentary last night just showed that these whole rankings are so silly until basically we get the final set of data, and then historically it has played itself out where they almost always get it right, minus the Florida State decision that one time.
You call it a TV show, but I think you just kind of summed it up. I was going to say it's a TV show, yeah, but it's got bad writing.
Yes.
The dialogue in the TV show is not very good. It's all American. Yeah, it's all American level bad.
Yeah,
that's how I feel watching it. But I'm interested to see what happens with BYU, with Notre Dame, with Alabama, with Miami. I don't think head-to-head should be the end-all, be-all. I know a lot of people do kind of go back to that, but I don't know if Miami beating Notre Dame by 3 points at home on a last-second field goal. I don't know if that matters more than the rest of the resume. I don't know what if it should or not. How do you feel?
I'm in agreement with you. I think it should be a component. I think you can also, look at these teams objectively and say, one team is put. Now, here's the thing. Miami has beaten the doors off of opponents the last 2 weeks. They beat the hell out of Syracuse, and they, battered an NC State team that a week prior beat Georgia Tech. So Miami is playing better now. But before that, I think you could say Notre Dame was ascending, whereas Miami, looked like they were hitting some speed bumps. So here's the thing: is that right now, Miami, they're in the field, but with an asterisk because it's the ACC filler. I do think if there's more carnage in the ACC, there's a chance that champion doesn't get in, and Miami just gets in as an at-large.
We'll see how it shakes out. Oklahoma beating Alabama, was the first real step of chaos, I thought, to where this became a actual conversation where, a two-loss SEC team could get left out. Vandy could go in and beat Kentucky and beat Tennessee and it still not be good enough. Up until Oklahoma beat Alabama, I thought, most of it will probably take care of itself. It's probably more likely that we have a three-loss playoff team than it is a two-loss team getting out. But now I don't think that is the case anymore. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's in Oklahoma. They got some work to do just to make sure that they actually stay in the dance. They're going to have to. I
still don't think they're any damn good. I acknowledge that I'm wrong on it. I acknowledge I'm letting my personal bias and some of that stuff
I don't think how. Every analytic model said that they basically had the least. It was
least
4%,
likely, the least probable,
least probability to win that game. 4%. I mean, they were outgained 2-1. I heard some podcast. I was stunned they were talking about how better Matera's looked in the last. It's like, what? He had 130 yards, and they didn't ask him to do anything. I mean, they were terrified that he was going to turn the ball over. Now, Brent Venables has that defense playing hell on wheels. So kudos to them. I mean, but how reliant can you be on 98-yard fumble returns and 86-yard pick sixes and and then for Alabama to, I thought, I think Alabama's going to get in. They're going to be fine, but they got punished badly by the committee for reasons that reasons, I guess. It makes like a blind resume test them against Notre Dame makes no sense. I mean, they got 4 wins over top 25 teams.
I think they finally held the Florida State loss against them. Like, now that they finally lost again, I think they finally went back and looked at the Florida State loss and was like, that Florida State team is pretty terrible, and they punked you. So maybe Alabama's just been winning a lot of close games, and maybe they're not, and which is how I felt about them. Like they keep winning, so you give them credit. But like every time I watch them, I'm like, man, this team is beatable. Man, this team is playing with fire. And then Alabama finally burns them. So I did think it was fair to drop them 4 spots.
But not behind Notre Dame. I mean, it just seems odd that you would punish. It seems odd that it's more important to this committee. Again, I actually don't think that this is going to proved to be the case come the final rankings. I think this is just the bad TV writing we're talking about, because in this iteration of this most recent episode, it was, for whatever reason, who you lost to mattered more than who you beat. And historically, that has not been the case.
I don't know. I felt like that's what they did with Tennessee last year. Like, Tennessee was going to be punished for losing to, the Arkansas loss wasn't good, but the loss to Georgia dropped them so far down the rankings, which was so weird. And like the Alabama win wasn't getting much credit. And, it just felt weird. It felt weird to me last year, the way they kind of judged Tennessee, where Tennessee did kind of need the chaos to work in its favor to actually get in. Notre Dame just maybe in the most blessed spot, though. I know they're hot. I know they're playing better. They beat the absolute hell out of Pitt, but those first 2 losses to start the season don't really matter, because they've taken care of an easy schedule down the stretch, and they don't look like they should slip up, and it looks like they'll get in and not have to worry about a conference championship or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was distracted for a second. Breaking news here. Florida, a couple reporters out here saying that Florida, maybe this is some hints there with Lane, Florida meeting with John Sumrall tomorrow. That honestly stuns me. Not that Florida would miss out on Lane, because we've already gone over all those scenarios. It honestly, and I think this is kudos to Strickland if this is true, because I have talked about bad processing. You almost never see these schools that you just hired a G5 coach from the state of Louisiana, that did not work out. And most schools then, pivot 180 in the opposite direction. The fact that Florida may be interested in a guy like Sumrall is interesting. We'll see if that plays out, but that's an interesting report.
To me, Jesse, it comes back to what I was saying about Eli Drinkwitz. You just don't get excited for him. And I'm not going to call him a Group 5 coach. I'm not going to be that disrespectful, but he wouldn't be somebody that got me fired up. So you might as well talk to some of the best Group 5 coaches, especially if they have some SEC experience, and not let the Billy Napier mistake affect your decision.
Yeah, I think again, that's good. It's bad processing if you do. So yeah, to your point, it's smart.
We'll see. If Brent Key gets a call. We'll see if Eli gets a call. I do find it interesting, and maybe it's different because Sumrall is a Group 5 coach, and there's not going to be any hard feelings there. But are we just going to have open reports about all these interviews and all these tours and everything? With Lane, if Eli does talk to them, are we going to hear about it? If Brent Key is taking phone calls, are we going to hear about it? Because I feel like that used to just kind of be behind the scenes fodder, and now it's being put out there on Front Street.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't ever remember it being this public, especially with the wives visiting and all that. I mean, Eli yesterday, the gobbledygook he was spitting about, liking Missouri and not having his eye on it. It was just, again, it couldn't be this could have been an email, because, it was actually a public press conference, but it could have been a short statement and then just, move it forward. But, he needed to say less, and instead he was speaking way too much. That
annoys me, but I got to say, I don't find anything to be more laughable than the wife is touring the local high schools. I find those reports to be so dumb. Whatever Lane Kiffin decides, it ain't going to be because whether or not he liked Jesse's high school at Florida more than the high school at LSU. That is stupid. You go somewhere, you're stupid rich, you'll find a good school to go to. You don't need to go tour the local high school.
Well, I think this, and the reason why I think this one has also been so public, is because Lane's kid is a pretty good little quarterback, and they want to set him up to be able to, he's a sophomore right now, so to have 2 years to build up his recruiting acumen. I think
his dad's a coach. Lane can get him a job. Lane can get him in a camp. Lane can give him an offer at LSU or Florida or Ole Miss, wherever he needs to go. He's got a good landing spot. He's a Nepo baby. He's his dad's the CEO. He can get a job somewhere. It'll be fun.
Hey, it's all fascinating. That's for sure.
All right, let's ask a couple. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's your feeling about Tennessee? Florida this weekend, biggest game in the SEC, obviously, with everyone else playing, SoCon Saturday.
I think it is a must win. I think this is one of. I think this is one of. Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest games Josh Heupel's ever coached at Tennessee. I do think the punishment, the what happens if you lose, that. That's tough to think about, because I think the hot seat or the fan, it's not really a hot seat meter, I guess, but a fan displeasure meter, it's at 35 out of 100 right now, where no one's really thrilled about the season. No one's really thrilled at the way the Boo Carter situation went. No one's really thrilled with some of the decisions. Hell, it's gotten to the point where people are constantly criticizing his appearance and calling him a slob. We've gotten there. The heat's gotten raised a little bit with Heupel, but if he loses to Florida, I think that goes up to 65, to where that Vanderbilt game becomes one that puts him at 80 or kind of knocks him back down to 50. So the end of the season is very fascinating with two rivals and a Florida team that you just quite frankly have to beat. You can't lose that game.
Yeah, and the Florida team's been so bizarre because they had the dead cat bounce in the rivalry game against Georgia, played hard, lost a tough game. Then they completely let go of the rope against Kentucky and just got throttled. And then last weekend, I mean, they could have beat Ole Miss. Now they didn't score in the second half because Lagway was so bad. But I mean, they put up a hell of a fight in the first half, and they made Ole Miss sweat until the very end. And they basically just couldn't stop Lacey.
Yeah, to me, that was simple. It's like, hey, Georgia, rivalry game, but also top 10 opponents. Hey, Kentucky sucks. Who gives a shit? Okay, they kicked our ass. Who cares? Whatever. And then Ole Miss, a chance to either A, stick it to Lane Kiffin, or B, beat a top 10 team. I don't know if Tennessee will get that. I don't know if they'll get the respect of Kentucky. Like, I think it'll be a little bit higher than Kentucky, but I don't think if I'm a Florida player that's got 7 losses that's just ready for the season to be over, I don't know how much I care about the Tennessee game. So I do kind of anticipate for the Florida performance to be closer to the Kentucky performance than the Ole Miss or Georgia one.
Yeah, the fact that it's a night game, could.
How the hell are we having to go to the Swamp against a 3-win Florida team and play at night? Who the hell set that schedule? Like,
I think it shows you how thin this slate is this weekend.
It also shows you how dumb the idea of like picking the game times before the season is too. Like, no Oklahoma or Missouri fan needed to know this was locked in at noon, months ago. When they put this out like in June. Like, we didn't need to know that it was locked in at noon because that's a better game than Tennessee, Florida. Make them go and play at night. Let us go into the Swamp at noon.
Even Arkansas, Texas has more intrigue.
Yeah. I mean, I get it in the preseason. You thought Florida was going to be better, but yeah, it sucks that you have to go to that game on the road. But Heupel needs to win it. Let's hit a couple questions. Dylan wants to know, would Alex Golesh be a fool to take the Oklahoma State job, which is what is being rumored?
Yeah, that one surprises me a little bit. I kind of thought they were going to go with like a Colin Klein because I didn't think they wanted to spend as much money. So I kind of thought that they were going to be a Colin Klein or the North Texas coach. I do think, Golesh has got to leave. And that's the thing is that you look at that roster. Byron Brown's a senior. They've got a ton of seniors on defense. I wrote it at the Surrender Cobra Substack this past weekend in my Week 12 report card. USF blew it. You open the season with wins over Boise State and Florida. You play Miami hard. You lose by several scores, but you played hard. The fact that they're not even going to get to maybe even go to the AAC championship and squander that and a playoff bid, I think they look like a team that might be distracted. So I think Oklahoma State in terms of upside is probably higher than other people do, because I think you're in the Big 12 and the avenue to be good is so much faster than it is at a school like Arkansas. But if I was him, I would try to get Arkansas bad, because at least then you're going to get lifetime retirement, generational wealth money.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not sure that would happen at a place like Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I kind of thought he was just going to hang around South Florida up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They played on a Friday night, and the place was absolutely empty. Whenever they still only had like one loss, and like nobody was there, and I was like, all right, never mind. They don't care.
They've been talking about building that stadium for years. That I think they do finally have like plans for, but he ain't gonna be around to see that.
The Oklahoma State job does feel crazy, but the Arkansas one to me doesn't feel much better other than the payday. Like that feels like a one-way ticket to being a coordinator again. Like, you go there, you lose, and then hopefully somebody picks you up and you have to work your way back up. At least at Oklahoma State, just put a competent product on the field. It's kind of similar to what he took over at South Florida, I feel like, where it was just like, hey, come in and play some competent football. The pressure should be absolutely non-existent at Oklahoma State, right? Like, they shouldn't be expecting anything from him after the way they've played, the last couple years. So I get it from that perspective. All right, Caleb asked, if Lane does end up staying at Ole Miss, do you see him changing his recruiting practices and investing more into high school players than transfer portal? Do you think he would change things up and be there for the long term and actually start making some long-term plans versus just one-year Band-Aids? Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think he would be forced to change if he takes LSU or Florida because of the recruiting footprints in those states. Obviously, LSU, every kid, every high school is the Tigers, and they wear purple and gold. And in Florida, there's just a ton of athletes and a ton of better prospects. Mississippi produces a bunch of big defensive linemen that Ole Miss has whiffed on for years. Mississippi is not a barren state in terms of high school talent. It's not nearly as good as Georgia, Alabama, LSU, or Florida, or Florida. But for whatever reason, that is not the path to team building that Lane believes in.
I do hope that if he stays, that we never have to hear about him flirting with other jobs again, though. Like, I feel like that should close the door. Like, if you could withstand LSU and Florida, maybe I'll say he could pull a Tony Vitello and go to the NFL. Like, maybe that becomes a new thing every year where the NFL wants Lane. But like, I feel like this is the last time he can flirt with a college team.
I feel like, but the Lane dance is not. It will become an NFL. Well, no, I don't even say it would be the last time. What happens if USC opens a year from now?
Surely USC ain't going to want to bring him back, are they?
Or Texas.
Yeah, I guess Texas could. All right, fair enough. Andrew asked, what is Texas going to do? I don't know what the hell that means. Like, Texas still has a coach. Like, Sarkisian's staying, right? Or do we think there's a chance he could jump to the NFL?
Well, he came out today and released this long statement that Desmond Howard, who released this bizarre video, who said Sark may leave Texas at the end of the here's the reality that people don't understand. A lot of these coaches, especially if Lane's going to get 12, 13, 14 million, if Sark, what he's making right now, already making, I think, like 11 or 12 million, there's only a couple of NFL jobs that'll pay that. Like Andy Reid, I think, is making insane, like 20-something million. But there's a ton of NFL. Your Titans are going to pay somebody like $4 or $5 million.
Yeah. Yep.
So the fact that they would allegedly leave for these pro jobs, if you're getting one, like if the Raiders are going to pay you $100 million or something like these, the NFL jobs just typically do not work that way.
Yeah.
So I think Stark's saying. My long-winded, I think Stark's saying.
All right. Anything else you want to get on record? Anything you're working on over at the Surrender Cobra Substack that you want to talk about? Floor is yours.
Yeah. Last little thing. The biggest game this weekend is the USC Trojans and the Oregon Ducks. This is Lincoln's chance. He's talked a big game about being patient and finally building this team, that this is the team he's gotten to coach more than any other because they finally have the infrastructure and the alignment and the roster together. We'll go to Alton and win. I mean, this is the Pac-12 championship for a Big Ten playoff spot. So let's see it. I've been, a little skeptical of this Oregon team all season. They gritted one out against Iowa, but now let's see them play a big boy game.
Seems crazy to me that they're like 9-point favorites. Oregon, like they do not feel 9 points better than any legitimate team.
Especially when you play. Again, these aren't apples to oranges, but the fact that the Florida Tennessee line is like 4.5. Like I would expect that one to be closer to again, I know it's in Gainesville, but I would expect that one to be closer to a touchdown than this Oregon one being, almost a double-digit spread.
All right, we'll see what happens. We'll talk about it next week. Any parenting stories you want to share? Anything crazy happening your way as you're now like in week 3 of being a papa?
Baby girl's eating and eating, sleeping, and pooping, so that's all you can ask for.
Fair enough. You're keeping her alive. I always tell people there's people way dumber than you throughout the history of the world that have been able to do this. So
exactly.
No pressure. All right, brother. Talk to you next week.
See you, buddy.